In our house, there was one rule everyone knew by heart, even if it was never spoken aloud. Never, ever sit on the chair by the window. It wasn't fancy. Just an old wooden chair with faded cushions and wood worn smooth by years of use. It was Dad's chair. And even after he passed away, it remained exactly where he left it, guarding that corner of the living room. Mom was the keeper of the chair. Every week, like a sacred ritual, she would clean it, dust it, and gently fluff the cushion. She'd run her hand along the armrest, her eyes lost in a memory none of us kids could quite reach. We all learned to walk around it, to treat it with a quiet reverence. It was like a silent monument in the middle of our everyday lives. We pretended not to think about it, but the truth is, that single piece of furniture held more weight, more unspoken history, than our entire home combined. For years, I obeyed the unwritten rule, but grief is a strange thing. It ebbs and flows, and sometimes it pulls you toward the very things you've been avoiding. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, Mom was out getting groceries, and the house was unusually quiet, filled only with the soft drumming of rain against the windowpane. My eyes kept drifting to the chair. It looked so solitary, so empty. I felt this strange, irresistible pull. Was it just curiosity? Or was it something deeper? A longing, maybe. The kind of dull, persistent ache that grows in the space left behind by someone you loved but never fully understood. My dad was a good man, but he was a quiet man, with walls I never knew how to climb, so I did it. For the first time in my life, I walked over, my heart thumping a little faster with each step, and I sat down in the chair. It felt surprisingly normal. The cushion sighed under my weight, the worn wood felt familiar against my back. It smelled faintly of old books and something I could only describe as Dad. I closed my eyes, just for a moment, letting myself feel his presence in that small space. And that's when I felt it. As I shifted my weight, my hand brushed against the underside of the seat, and I felt a rough patch. Not a splinter, but something deliberate. A small, scratchy texture against the otherwise smooth wood. My curiosity piqued. I knelt on the floor, craning my neck to look underneath. It was dark, but my fingers traced the shapes. They were letters, carvings. I pulled out my phone, switched on the flashlight, and aimed the beam under the seat. There, etched crudely into the wood, were 4 words. For the day you forgive me. My heart didn't just drop, it plummeted. A cold wave washed over me. Forgive him? Forgive him for what? My dad was my hero. He was the steady, quiet force in our family. What could he have possibly done that needed forgiving? The words didn't make any sense. They felt like a puzzle piece from a completely different box. I read them over and over, the rain outside seeming to grow louder, matching the storm brewing inside me. I was still on the floor, staring at the hidden message when I heard the front door open. It was Mom. She walked into the living room, shaking the rain from her coat, a bag of groceries in her arms. Then she saw me. First, her eyes went to the empty spot on the floor where I usually sat, then to the chair, where I was now kneeling. She froze. The bag of groceries slipped from her hand, and an apple rolled across the hardwood floor, coming to a stop near my feet. Her face went pale. "You weren't supposed to see that," she whispered, her voice barely audible, tight with an emotion I couldn't place. It wasn't anger. It was fear. And a deep, profound sadness. I stood up slowly. "What does it mean, Mom? Forgive him for what?" She wouldn't look at me. She just stared at the chair as if it were a ghost. She started picking up the spilled groceries, her hands shaking so badly she could barely grasp a can of soup. I asked again, my own voice trembling now. "Please, Mom, tell me." She hesitated for a long time. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. It felt like an eternity passed in those few seconds. Then she walked over and did something I had never seen her do in all the years since Dad died. She sat down beside me on the floor, leaning her back against the legs of that very chair, the chair she herself hadn't touched in years. And then she told me everything. It turned out my father had a secret. A mistake he had made years ago, long before I was old enough to understand the complexities of adult life. It wasn't something scandalous or dramatic like in the movies. It was a quiet mistake, a breach of trust between him and my mom. Something that had created a tiny, invisible fracture in their marriage. It was something he carried with him, a heavy guilt that built the quiet walls around him. He wanted to fix it, to tear those walls down, but he never found the right words, never found the courage to say them out loud. The shame had silenced him. "He carved that message the day before he died," Mom whispered, her voice cracking. Tears were streaming down her face now, silent and steady. He called me from work. He said he was coming home early. He said he needed to talk to us, to finally tell the truth and ask for our forgiveness. But he never made it home. The accident happened on his way back. That same night. And suddenly everything clicked into place: the chair, the cleaning ritual, the unspoken rule. We weren't holding on to a piece of furniture. We were holding on to unfinished business, unspoken words, an apology that was never heard, and forgiveness that was never given. The chair wasn't a memorial to his life. It was a memorial to his last intention. I looked at my mom, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. And for the first time I saw not just a grieving widow, but a woman who had been waiting for a conversation that would never happen. Without a word, I stood up, gently took her hand, and helped her to her feet. Then I guided her to chair. She sank into it, her body finally letting go of the tension it had held for years. And she cried. She cried for the man she loved, for the secret he carried, and for the healing that was stolen from them. And I sat on the floor, leaned my head against her knee, and I cried with her, because sometimes it's not the truth that breaks a family. It's the chance to fix things that never comes. That day, in the arms of that old wooden chair, we weren't just mourning his death. We were mourning the forgiveness that got lost along the way. And in that shared grief, we finally started to find our own. Thank you for listening. If this story touched you, please consider liking and subscribing for more stories about the moments that shape us. Take care.